Okay, imagine this for a moment. It's maybe 6:15 a.m. Picture two scenes happening at the exact same time, worlds apart.
Okay.
High in the Himalayas, you've got a monk, very deliberately, very slowly, pouring hot water over tea leaves, total presence, you know. His mind is just quiet, settled.
Complete calm.
Right. Now, jump across the globe. New York City high-rise, a startup founder is hitting snooze, maybe for the third time. Their heart's already pounding.
Oh, yeah. Been there.
Totally. They're already stressing about Slack, mentally drafting some urgent email, and their feet haven't even hit the floor yet.
A powerful contrast. Both are technically awake.
Right.
Both starting their day.
Exactly.
But, and this is the key thing, only one of them is actually present for it. Really there to receive the day.
That's it. And that really gets to the heart of this paradox of the modern morning, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. We've bought into this culture of like hyper efficiency. We wake up earlier, we track everything, optimize everything.
Yeah, the biohacking, the routine.
Right. And yet, somehow, we end up arriving at our day. Well, later. We show up fragmented, scattered, already kind of feeling behind.
Later in terms of presence, you mean? Not clock time.
Precisely. Our attention is gone, hijacked before we've even consciously set an intention for the day.
That phrase, waking up earlier but arriving later, that really hits hard. It perfectly captures that restless feeling, that need to fill every second. Okay, so this is what we're diving into today. How do we bridge that gap? We need to stop thinking of the morning as just this frantic rush, this launch sequence we have to just blast through.
Yeah, like it's just a means to an end.
Exactly, and start seeing it as a threshold.
Yeah.
You know, a really powerful, almost sacred space where we get to choose. We get to decide how we want to navigate the day before the chaos hits.
Recalibrating that inner compass. I like that.
Yeah, we're looking for alignment here, for clarity, and not just ticking off more boxes faster.
And you know, in our culture right now, this hyper-productive culture, we've really almost failed the morning, haven't we?
Failed it. How so?
Well, we've turned it into a kind of battlefield. Success is measured purely by speed. How many emails did you clear before 7 a.m.? How fast did you get through your workout?
Right, like sheer velocity equals value.
Exactly. As if just doing more, faster, automatically means you're achieving something meaningful or sustainable.
Okay, but let me push back on that a little. In today's world, isn't some speed necessary? I mean, if your competitor is answering emails at 6:38 and you're, meditating, aren't you genuinely falling behind? For a lot of people, that stillness feels like a luxury they can't afford. Like something only monks or CEOs who've already made it can do.
And that right there, that's the core assumption we have to dismantle. It's totally rooted in a scarcity mindset, this idea that if you're not frantically active, you're losing.
Okay.
Think about it like this. When we treat the morning like a runway, we have to sprint down just to take off. The only goal is escape velocity, just getting airborne into the day's chaos as fast as possible. But what happens if you're already gasping for breath, running on cortisol before the workday even officially begins?
Your flight path is going to be shaky, reactive.
Exactly. Riddled with errors. You're sacrificing long-term stability for short-term speed.
So the quick win of clearing the inbox early might actually cost you more later in bad decisions or burnout.
Precisely. The alternative isn't laziness. It's treating the morning as a sanctuary, not a runway, a protected space where you intentionally choose your flight path instead of letting the incoming emails and notifications choose it for you.
A sanctuary. I like that.
Yeah.
Trading that frantic burst for sustained clarity. Okay, so here's where it gets, well, really challenging to that ingrained productivity script, I think. What if the most powerful, the most strategic thing you could do before, say, 8 a.m. is nothing?
But we need to be very clear about what that nothing actually means.
Right. It's not just sitting there zoning out or being lazy.
No, absolutely not. It's not idleness. It's presence. It's making a conscious, strategic choice not to immediately jump into scrolling or planning or problem-solving the biggest fires. Not yet.
It's just being, letting the mental dust settle.
Yes. Allowing yourself to fully arrive in your body in the moment before you demand peak performance from your mind.
And it's fascinating because this isn't some new fad, is it? This idea has been central to wisdom traditions for, well, centuries. Millennia, even.
Absolutely. If you look at ancient practices like, say, Buddhist monastic life, the day doesn't kick off with immediate frantic activity.
Not chanting or chores right away.
No. It starts with awareness. The very first act is a conscious return, a return to the breath, a return to the body, noticing the simple fact of being alive, observing the mind without getting tangled up in the thoughts.
So the pause is the priority.
It is, and crucially, this awareness isn't just ritual for its own sake. That's where people sometimes go wrong, copying the action without the underlying intention. This initial pause, this awareness, is fundamentally strategic.
Yeah.
It's the quiet moment where you calibrate your inner compass. That calibration determines how effectively, how wisely you navigate the rest of the day's demands.
Without it, you're just reacting.
You're fragmented from the start. You're responding based on yesterday's leftover stress, not the actual present situation. By pausing, you set the terms of engagement for the day before the day sets them for you. It completely shifts the dynamic.
Okay, the moment you said strategic, that really caught my attention, because we often think of this stuff as purely philosophical, maybe a bit, spirit versus body, mind versus work.
Right, we create these false divides.
But you're saying the morning ritual, the stillness, it physically changes our state for the day.
Absolutely, it's not just a nice idea, it's neurobiology. Modern neuroscience is actually providing really strong confirmation for what these ancient traditions knew intuitively. Well, the science shows that the first, say, 30 minutes after you wake up are neurologically critical. They literally set the neurochemical and hormonal tone for the entire rest of your day.
You're essentially wiring your brain in that first half hour.
You are. You're choosing, consciously or unconsciously, whether to wire it for focused success or for reactive crisis.
Wow, okay, so let's get specific about those chemicals. You mentioned hormones, cortisol, dopamine, norepinephrine. They're like messengers of our inner state.
Exactly. Think of them that way. Now, what happens when your first act is grabbing your phone? Which, let's be honest, is often basically an anxiety delivery device.
Guilty as charged, scrolling news headlines, checking emails.
Right. If you start with that kind of external rush, that reactivity, that distraction, you're flooding your system with stress hormones. Primarily cortisol and norepinephrine.
The fight or flight chemicals.
Precisely. That immediate cortisol surge is designed for acute survival situations. You're effectively telling your brain and body, danger, threat, we need to react now to survive.
And the cost of living in that survival state, even low grade, is what? Cognitive decline?
It is, measurably so. The survival wiring diverts crucial energy and resources away from the most evolved part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex.
Okay, remind me the prefrontal cortex is responsible for.
Executive functions. Things like complex planning, working memory, emotional regulation, seeing the bigger picture, empathy, wisdom. Basically, all the things you need for high-level performance and good decision-making.
So when cortisol floods the system,
The amygdala, the more primitive part of the brain focused on threats, basically hijacks the system. The prefrontal cortex gets sidelined. You might feel busy, you might feel like you're reacting fast, but you are functionally less intelligent in that state. Less creative, less empathetic, less able to solve complex problems effectively.
your decisions become short-sighted.
Reactive, not strategic.
That explains so much. Like, why trying to tackle a really complex problem first thing before you've centered yourself feels so incredibly hard. It's not just willpower, it's brain chemistry.
It's neurochemical reality. But the good news is, the opposite is also true. A mindful morning, even a very brief one, acts as clarity activation.
Okay, how does that work chemically?
Starting with stillness or conscious breathing or maybe focusing on gratitude. These practices tend to activate the prefrontal cortex instead of the amygdala. It doesn't mean stress disappears from your day entirely.
Right, life still happens.
Of course. But it means you meet the incoming demands, the inevitable stresses, from a place of insight, emotional balance, and perspective, rather than from raw fear or panic.
And the really empowering part here is that we're not talking about needing hours for this. The sources emphasize the power of just, what, 10 minutes?
10 minutes can be incredibly high leverage. Think about that CEO example. She takes just 10 minutes, sits in silence, focuses on her breath before she looks at a single email.
To an outsider, especially in a high-pressure environment, that might look like she's wasting valuable time, slacking off almost.
Right. The hustle culture screams, get moving. But what she's actually doing is making a profound strategic investment. She's ensuring that the critical, high-stakes decisions she needs to make later that day, maybe at 3 p.m., maybe involving millions of dollars, come from a place of grounded wisdom.
Not from the residual panic of some aggressive email she read at 6:30 a.m.
Exactly. She's optimizing for the quality of her thinking and decision-making, not just the sheer quantity of tasks she can churn through.
And this same principle applies just as much in creative work, doesn't it? Though maybe the mechanism feels slightly different.
It's fundamentally about resource protection. Think about an artist or a writer, someone who spends maybe 15 minutes just quietly sipping tea, watching the light shift outside the window.
Yeah.
They aren't just delaying the real work, they're actively protecting the inner wellspring, that fragile space where original thought, insight, and creativity actually come from.
Because that creativity needs quiet to emerge.
It absolutely does. It gets easily choked out by the noise, the fragmentation, the demands of the inbox. So by protecting that morning quiet, they're maintaining the clear channel needed for those original ideas to actually surface and flow. It's not self-indulgence.
It's resource management.
Yes, preventing creative depletion before the day even starts. And this really brings us to the core idea, which is that mindfulness, this conscious presence, isn't about escaping the world. It's not about retreating from your emails or your responsibilities.
It's about engaging differently.
Exactly. It's about learning to enter the world, the sometimes chaotic, demanding world, more fully, more intentionally. And the morning is your prime opportunity every single day to choose how you're going to enter.
I love that framing, choosing how you enter. And it links to this idea you mentioned, turning the morning from just a chore, something to get through, into more of a ceremony. We need practical ways to see how that works. And the Japanese tea ceremony, Chanoyu, is such a powerful example of this kind of deep intentionality.
Oh, Chanoyu is a perfect illustration.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's so clearly not just about quenching thirst or drinking tea.
Right, there's so much more going on.
It's a profound practice. It's built on these 4 pillars: harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility. Every single action, preparing the space, handling the utensils, heating the water, whisking the matcha, the way you hold the bowl, even your posture, every tiny detail is done with immense precision and a kind of reverence.
Reverence for the ordinary moment.
Exactly. The simple act of boiling water becomes this deep practice of presence.
So if we take that principle and apply it to our own morning routine, making coffee maybe, getting dressed, those first few conscious breaths.
Yes.
If we approach those not as just tasks on a checklist, but as elements of a personal ceremony,
With that same quality of attention and intention.
then the whole feeling of the morning and potentially the whole day shifts. It becomes less about obligation and more about maybe devotion to being present.
It absolutely transforms the energy. And this shift and approach leads to a profound shift in your core choice for the day.
How so?
When you approach the morning as a ceremony, you stop meeting the day like a taskmaster, someone who's just there to crack the whip and demand you check off items under duress.
And instead,
You meet it more like an honored guest, someone you've invited in, someone you want to engage with fully, respectfully.
so the internal question changes.
Completely. You wake up, and instead of that instant panic of, oh God, what must I do today just to survive or keep up?
Yeah, that default question.
It shifts to something deeper. Who do I want to be today? What qualities, what values do I want to embody as I move through these hours?
That pivot from focusing purely on doing to focusing on being first,
Yeah.
that feels like the ultimate act of self-leadership. Taking charge of your own energy, your own attention.
It is. And here's where maybe the magic happens. When we really commit to that intentional stillness, even if it's just 5 minutes of focusing on breath, or maybe reflecting on gratitude, we are, in a very real sense, sanctifying the day.
Sanctifying it.
Like making it sacred. Yes. In that moment, the artificial boundary we create between our spiritual practice over here and our real life, the busy, messy, demanding life over there,
Yeah.
that boundary starts to dissolve.
So it stops being compartmentalized. Like, okay, did my 5 minutes of mindfulness, now back to the chaos.
Exactly. The morning ritual isn't separate. It becomes the first deliberate act of infusing your chosen values, your chosen state of being, into the very fabric of the day. You're setting the energetic and mental field of play before you step onto the external one defined by emails and meetings and demands.
Yeah.
You take control first.
Okay, so if the goal of the monk sitting isn't really to achieve something in the typical sense, but more like polishing the mirror of the mind, as they say, then what shows up in that polished mirror is just reality.
Okay.
Clearer, less distorted by our own anxiety or projections.
That's a great way to put it.
And this feels like the exact point where modern ideas of success and this ancient wisdom really click together, right? Because genuine, sustainable success seems to flow from seeing things clearly.
Yeah.
And that clarity needs stillness.
Absolutely. This is a truth that you find echoed in cognitive psychology, in leadership studies, and in contemplative traditions. Real, lasting success doesn't come from just working faster or doing more tasks. It comes from seeing clearly.
Seeing the root cause of a problem or seeing an opportunity others miss.
Yes, seeing the systemic issue, not just the symptom. Seeing the path for genuine innovation. And that kind of clarity absolutely requires a mind that is settled, quiet, not constantly agitated. That stillness is the prerequisite.
Okay, let's dive into the specific tools for cultivating that stillness. The source material mentions the Pali word for mindfulness, sati, and it defines it as remembering to be present. That word remembering feels really active, not passive.
It is active. Sati isn't about zoning out or becoming blissfully unaware. It's better understood as a kind of metacognition. It's like remembering to watch the watcher.
Remembering who you are underneath all the roles and anxieties.
Exactly. Remembering your core self beneath the job title, the stress, the urgent to-do list. When you begin your day with even a brief practice of sati, you're consciously choosing to align your actions with your deeper values.
Choosing response over reaction.
That's the essence of it. And that choice, that tiny gap you create, makes all the difference in the world, especially when things go sideways later in the day. When that inevitable crisis hits at, say, 10:30 a.m.
Okay, let's really break down that crisis example. Imagine two people, same job, facing the exact same difficult situation. Maybe a huge client suddenly pulls the plug on a major project.
Okay. Professional A woke up, grabbed their phone instantly, doom-scrolled the news, felt their heart rate climb with the first urgent email. They started the day already in that low-grade fight-or-flight mode.
So when the bad news hits,
They don't just face the problem, they become the problem. Their nervous system is immediately hijacked. The internal narrative is instant panic. This is a catastrophe, we're sunk, I have to fix this, and now W. They react from that place of desperation.
often making things worse with impulsive decisions.
Usually. Now, professional B. They also woke up, but they took those 10 minutes. Maybe they just sat quietly, watching their breath. Maybe they mentally repeated a simple intention like, my actions today serve wisdom, not fear.
They weren't solving the future problem, just centering themselves.
Right. So when the same bad news hits professional B, their body still reacts. Of course it does. The adrenaline still spikes, the tension rises. But because of that morning practice, they've cultivated the crucial observer self. They have built a tiny gap between the stimulus and the response. They notice the tightness in their chest, the racing thoughts, but they don't instantly fuse with the panic.
They can observe the reaction without being swept away by it.
Exactly. They can say internally, okay, that's adrenaline, that's fear talking.
Yeah.
Now, what is the actual situation? What's the wise, actionable step here? They face the same storm, but professional B has built themselves in inner harbor.
An inner harbor,
Yeah.
a place of refuge, of perspective, even when the waves are crashing outside.
That's the goal. A place for strategic assessment, not just reaction.
And again, this isn't just a nice metaphor. You're saying this has a basis in neurobiology. What specific parts of the brain get stronger with this kind of consistent morning practice?
Yes, there's good evidence for this. Two key areas really benefit. First is the anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC.
ACC, what does that do?
It's heavily involved in things like monitoring for errors, impulse control, and emotional regulation. A well-functioning ACC helps you notice when you're about to make a rash decision under pressure and allows you to pause.
Okay, that makes sense. And the second region?
The second, and maybe even more relevant for this kind of resilience, is the insula.
The insula. I've heard that term linked to like internal body awareness, interoception.
That's right. The insula is essentially your brain's map of your body's internal landscape. It's how you feel your heartbeat, your gut feelings, muscle tension, warmth, cold.
So how does strengthening that help me respond better to, say, a really terse email from my boss or a sudden financial worry?
Great question. When you feel anxiety, the insula registers those physical sensations, the racing heart, the knot in your stomach. For a mind that hasn't practiced observing these signals, those physical feelings are the threat. They trigger an immediate defensive or reactive response.
You react directly to the feeling itself.
Exactly. But when you strengthen the insula through practices like mindful breathing or body scanning in the morning, you learn to observe these internal signals with more neutrality. You notice the knot in your stomach, but you can differentiate. You can recognize, okay, this is the feeling of anxiety, the body's alarm bell, but the actual external situation, the mind's assessment of the email, might require a calm response, not panic.
Ah, so you gain a buffer. You don't have to automatically react from the physical sensation.
Precisely. The practical result is increased resilience. You get that sharp email. You feel the physical clench, but you take a breath. You acknowledge the feeling without letting it dictate your response. Then you can reply with clarity and professionalism instead of firing back defensively or spiraling into panic.
That distinction, reacting to the feeling versus reacting to the reality, that feels huge. That sounds a lot like the concept of upekkha, or equanimity.
It's very closely related. Upekkha is often described as balanced engagement. It means you care deeply, you're fully involved, you act with purpose, but you maintain a sense of balance. You don't get completely swept away by success or failure. You don't cling desperately to specific outcomes.
It's like the secret weapon of really resilient leaders and creative thinkers.
It truly is. You give your absolute best effort, you pour your heart into the project, but if the client still walks away or the market shifts unexpectedly, you don't collapse into self-blame or despair. You assess the situation clearly, learn what you can, and adapt.
Okay, let's make this even more concrete. How does this apply directly to two major stress areas for most people, money and relationships, where impulsivity can cause so much damage?
Let's start with finances. We often think financial stress just needs more hustle, more aggressive action. But often, the real problem starts much earlier with unexamined impulses.
Like what?
Late-night online shopping splurges after a bad day. Emotional spending to soothe anxiety. Making investment decisions based on FOMO, fear of missing out, rather than clear analysis.
We've all been there.
Right. Mindfulness, cultivated in the morning, creates that vital pause, that 10-second gap between the impulse, I need this, and the action, clicking buy. In that gap, a different voice can emerge.
The voice of wisdom.
Or at least the voice of inquiry. You can ask, wait, is this purchase, this financial move, actually aligned with my long-term goals and values? Or is it just a knee-jerk reaction to feeling stressed or inadequate right now? That pause can save you from countless regrets.
And relationships. Oh boy. It's so easy to carry stress from one part of life right into our interactions with loved ones.
Devastatingly easy. We carry the cortisol from a frantic morning or the frustration from a work email right into a conversation with our partner or kids.
So a simple neutral question like, did you remember to pay the electric bill, lands like an accusation.
Exactly. Because our nervous system is already primed for threat. We're wearing yesterday's armor into today's interactions. This is why incorporating even just 5 minutes of something like metaphor, loving kindness meditation can be so transformative for relationships.
Okay, Meta. Loving kindness. How does that work practically for someone listening?
It's quite simple, really. You sit quietly and silently, repeat specific phrases of well-wishing. Traditionally, it's something like, may I be safe, may I be healthy, may I be happy, may I live with ease. You offer these phrases first to yourself.
Starting with self-compassion.
Yes, which is crucial. Then you gradually extend that same goodwill outward to a loved one. Then to someone neutral, like a person you see at the grocery store. Then, importantly, to someone you find difficult.
Ah, that's the challenging part.
It is, but it's powerful. And finally, you extend it to all beings everywhere. Just doing this for 5 minutes consistently, it primes your emotional state for goodwill.
So you enter those daily interactions
with more openness, less defensiveness, more kindness, less armor. You effectively interrupt that cycle where the stress from one area poisons the connection in another.
So we're building towards what feels like the most, maybe, radical idea in all of this, which is this morning practice, this ritual of presence. It isn't just preparing you for success later in the day. It's not just a warm-up.
Yeah.
It is success in its most fundamental form. Success defined not just by external achievements, but by internal alignment, by integrity.
Yes. And to really grasp that, we have to directly challenge this toxic split, this dualism that our culture constantly sells us.
What split is that?
The lie that says, to be truly spiritual, you have to somehow renounce the messy material world. And conversely, to be truly successful in that world, you have to be ruthless, maybe even conquer it, leaving your soul at the door.
As if spirituality and worldly success are mutually exclusive. Oil and water.
Exactly. When in reality, true, deep, sustainable fulfillment comes only when you learn to weave them together. When you recognize that your inner state directly fuels your outer actions, and vice versa. You can't achieve lasting external success if your inner world is bankrupt and chaotic.
Okay, let's use that roots and branches analogy from the source. I think that really helps make this integration tangible for people. How does the quiet internal stuff connect to the noisy external results?
It's a perfect analogy because it highlights interdependence. Think of your spiritual practice. The quiet breathing, the moments of stillness, setting your intention that's like the deep, unseen root system of a tree.
Okay.
It's nourished underground in the quiet dark, through consistency, through the willingness to just be there.
And the branches.
The branches are everything visible.
Yeah.
Your career, your projects, your relationships, the impact you have in the world. They're reaching for the sun, bearing fruit. But here's the key. A tree cannot flourish, cannot grow tall and strong and bear fruit if it cuts itself off from its roots. The branches will inevitably wither and die.
No roots, no branches. But the reverse is also true, isn't it? Roots don't really have a purpose without the branches reaching for the light.
Exactly. The wisdom cultivated in stillness, the clarity gained in the quiet, isn't meant to just stay there, locked away. It's meant to be brought out into the world, tested, applied, used to guide your actions in the marketplace, in your family, in your community.
So the stillness informs the action.
It transforms it. And this integration fundamentally changes the nature of ambition itself.
How so? Ambition often gets a bad rap in spiritual circles.
It does, often seen as purely ego-driven. But when your ambition is rooted in this deeper awareness, cultivated in the morning stillness, it shifts. It stops being this frantic, hungry energy driven by scarcity or ego, that constant need to prove yourself, to get more, to be seen as enough.
And it becomes
more like a steady flame, fueled by a sense of purpose, by your core values, by a genuine desire to contribute or create something meaningful. The driving question shifts from what can I get to what can I give, what can I help build.
This completely reframes what effective leadership looks like too. We tend to glorify leaders who just seem to grind the hardest, sleep the least, the hustle and grind icons.
But history, and even modern examples, show a different picture, often leads to more sustainable impact. Think about someone like Yvon Chouinard at Patagonia.
Right, the founder.
Famously, at one point, he shut down the entire company for months, forcing the leadership team to go climbing and surfing and just reflect deeply on their core mission of environmentalism.
Which is the absolute opposite of the always-on, maximize every minute business philosophy.
Completely. Or think about leaders like Jacinda Ardern, praised for her compassionate and incredibly grounded responses during nature crises. Their effectiveness didn't come from just outworking everyone.
It came from where?
It seems to have come from listening deeper, from creating space for reflection, from building their influence, even their empires, on clearly defined values and boundaries, and yes, periods of silence, not just on relentless noise and burnout.
That Patagonia example is so concrete. Closing the company to reflect, that's a decision that could only come from a place of deep wisdom, prioritizing long-term values over short-term financial panic.
Exactly. It suggests these leaders likely started their days not just with a frantic checklist, but with a deeper question. Something like, what kind of world am I actually helping to create with my work today? They define their purpose before letting the world dictate their tasks.
Okay, but I can hear someone listening now, nodding along, but still thinking, this all sounds great, but I genuinely do not have time. My commute is long, my kids need me, my work day is already 12 hours. Adding 5 minutes of silence feels impossible. We have to tackle this time myth head on.
We absolutely do, because the time myth is perhaps the most common and insidious form of self-sabotage when it comes to this. It rests on the false equation that activity equals productivity.
Meaning?
You don't actually need more hours in your day to practice this kind of integration. What you need is more presence in the hours you already have.
More presence, not more time.
Think about it. How much time do we waste spinning our wheels due to reactive decisions made in haste? How much energy is lost to scrolling anxiety or dealing with the fallout from misunderstandings caused by stress? How much productivity is lost recovering from burnout?
Probably far more than 5 or 10 minutes.
Way more. That 5 minutes of conscious breathing before you even look at your phone isn't unproductive. It is arguably the single most strategic investment you can make in your entire day.
The return on investment is huge.
Massive. Because that small investment in stillness helps ensure that the much larger investment, the other 98% of your waking hours, is actually directed effectively. Guided by your values, focused on complex tasks, rather than being constantly hijacked by impulse, distraction, and reactivity. But let's be honest for a moment. We need to acknowledge why this simple practice can feel so difficult. Why do we often resist stillness so fiercely?
Yeah, why is it sometimes so uncomfortable just to sit quietly?
Because, very often, stillness forces us to confront what we've been actively running away from. When the external noise stops, the internal noise gets louder, at least initially.
The unspoken fears surface.
Exactly. Those nagging questions, those insecurities. Am I really doing okay? Am I enough? Have I been chasing the wrong things all these years? What if I slow down and realize I don't like where I'm headed?
That initial discomfort, that mental chatter when you first sit down, it's not a sign you're failing at mindfulness.
Not at all. In fact, that discomfort, that vulnerability, is the whole point. It's the doorway. It's the most profound invitation you can receive.
An invitation to what?
An invitation to stop running, to gently turn towards what's difficult, to realign, to heal, and ultimately to remember that we are human beings, not just human doings. We're not machines built purely for optimizing output and consumption.
It brings to mind that classic Zen saying.
Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Exactly. The external tasks, the daily activities, they don't necessarily change. Chopping wood is still chopping wood. Carrying water is still carrying water.
So what does change?
The quality of your presence within the action. Before enlightenment, or let's just say before cultivating presence, you might be chopping wood resentfully, distractedly, thinking about a million other things, seeing the task merely as an obstacle to get through.
And after?
After, you're just there, fully. You feel the weight and swing of the axe, you hear the crack of the wood splitting, you feel the strain in your muscles, you're present to the physical reality of the act. Same with carrying water. You feel the coolness, the weight of the buckets, the sound of it splashing. You taste the sheer aliveness in the ordinary.
So the goal isn't necessarily to change what we do all day, but how we are while we're doing it, bringing that quality of presence even to the mundane, the tedious tasks.
Yes. We often look for profundity in grand gestures or peak experiences.
But maybe it's hidden in the everyday.
There's that beautiful story, I think it's Tibetan, about the monk who spends years searching for enlightenment, meditating in freezing caves, mastering complex philosophical texts.
Right, the epic spiritual quest.
Exactly. And after all that striving, he returns home, feeling completely exhausted, disillusioned, like he's failed. He walks back into his dusty little village.
What does he find?
He walks up to the door of his childhood home, and he sees his elderly mother. She's just sweeping the doorstep. Her back is bent, her hands are rough from a lifetime of simple work. She looks up, sees him, and just smiles this simple, loving smile and says something like, "Oh, you're home."
And that's the moment.
That's the moment. He just bursts into tears
Yeah.
because he realizes in that instant that the enlightenment he was seeking wasn't hidden away in some remote cave or complex doctrine. It was right there. It was in the ordinary, dust-covered act of love and care, in the steady, present sweep of his mother's broom. The profound wasn't separate from the simple. It was found within it.
Wow. That's, yeah, the hidden truth that our modern success culture just refuses to see, isn't it? That this spirituality, this intentional presence, it's not the opposite of success. It's not a fluffy add-on.
It's the source. It's the deep, generative wellspring from which enduring success and genuine fulfillment actually arise.
And this meeting point, you called it the kiss of success and spirituality. It doesn't happen on a mountaintop necessarily.
No, it happens right here, in the steam rising from your morning coffee or tea, and feeling the solid weight of your feet on the floor when you stand up, in the conscious choice, later in the day, to respond with kindness instead of snapping when you feel irritated, in the courage to say no to a distraction so you can say a deeper yes to what truly matters to you.
It's about remembering we're alive.
Yes. The world doesn't necessarily need more hustlers, more people just optimizing output. What it desperately needs is more fully awake, fully present human beings. People who remember they are alive.
So when you truly master your morning in this way, when you establish that conscious threshold of presence, you're essentially reclaiming your own humanity. And from that place, that calm, clear, connected space, maybe success isn't something you chase frantically anymore.
Maybe it just unfolds more naturally as a direct result of living in alignment with integrity.
That's a powerful reframe.
But we have to end with a challenge, the ongoing practice. Because establishing a morning ritual isn't a magic pill that makes difficulty disappear.
Right, life is still life.
So if the morning truly sets the tone, and we do our best to cultivate that inner harbor, the deeper question remains, the one that requires lifelong practice. What happens when the day falls apart anyway?
Yeah.
When the crisis hits hard at noon, when the inbox explodes despite your mindful start, when your own mind feels like it's turning against you with stress and reactivity? Is that morning practice really enough then? How you sustain that presence through the storm?
That feels like the next level of the practice, extending that inner harbor. But for now, for anyone listening, the immediate first step is clear.
It is, and it's achievable.
Tomorrow morning, before the world rushes in and claims your attention, claim yourself first, just for a few minutes. Sit, breathe. Remember who you aspire to be today. Let your day begin not with that frantic, panicked sprint,
But with a quiet, conscious, sacred yes.